Hello, I'm HomoArrosor. There is a core point I have continuously researched and emphasized. Pi Network is not just a coin bought and sold on exchanges, but is highly likely designed with a structure most suitable for the upcoming global regulated financial system. And today, that prediction has once again begun to appear as real-world data. It has been confirmed that Pi Network is officially registered in the ISO 2465 Digital Asset Identification System, and that exact identifier is being used right now in the European MiCA white paper and the actual living compliance systems of regulated exchanges. Now, you really have to understand, this is not just an issue of a single ISO code being issued. The dismantling of KYC silos, the connection of verified humans and assets, and the process of Pi entering as a real-world use asset in the regulated global digital economy, which we've extensively researched regarding registered wallets, all of this has begun to reveal itself within the actual institutional system. We are standing here in July 2026, and the landscape is fundamentally shifting. So let's dive into this explainer and meticulously unpack exactly what this means, how the architecture was built, and why this is completely changing the game for the entire digital asset space. Here is our roadmap for today. We will cover the official DTI registration, the European MiCA and ESMA integration, the US tax reporting infrastructure, regulatory native and wallets, breaking the KYC silos, and finally, the present facts and final conclusion. Okay, let's start with the foundational fact of our reality today, which is the DTI Foundation Registry. The Digital Token Identifier Foundation officially lists the Pi Network Asset Group with the group code 2Z2WZP5KM and the individual token identifier 2K95TZ2QN. And I want you to pay very close attention to the date on this record, December 12, 2025. You see, this isn't a new application that was just frantically filed yesterday to keep up with the news. No, it marks a massive piece of institutional infrastructure that is already complete and active. We aren't looking at an impending event or hoping for some future approval. We are discovering a completed puzzle piece that has already been sitting in the global financial registry, quietly waiting as the rest of the institutional framework was systematically built around it. It's right there, issued and live.
To truly grasp how massive this is, we have to understand exactly why two distinct codes exist in this registry. Institutions absolutely require machine-readable identities to prevent catastrophic confusion across their global networks. Imagine a massive international bank. If their automated system just sees the ticker symbol PI, it doesn't know what it's looking at. Is it the native token? Is it a wrap token on Ethereum? Is it a bridged asset? Or is it a complete imposter token created by a scammer? They can't operate on guesswork. So the individual DTI, which is 2K95TZ2QN, precisely targets the actual on-chain Pi token operating on its own native blockchain. It's the technical fingerprint. Meanwhile, the group DTI, 2ZZWZP5KM, universally binds the economic asset to its regulatory white paper. This solves a massive problem for global finance. It provides a definitive, legally unarguable answer to the question, what exactly is this asset and what legal documentation governs its existence? It marries the technical code to the legal reality.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer depth of this registration. Look at the status. It says validated. In the DTF registry, this status confirms that Pi's asset name, its symbol, and its technical data aren't just provisional. They aren't pending a review. They have successfully passed the DTF Foundation's incredibly strict verification procedures. They are fully verified reference data. Now let's be extremely precise here so there's absolutely no misunderstanding. This does not mean the ISO or the DTF is endorsing Pi's business model, guaranteeing its market price, or proving it as some sort of hot investment. That's not what they do. What it means is that global financial systems now possess the exact, verified common asset number required to process Pi natively. When a heavily regulated entity needs to interact with Pi, they no longer use an arbitrary made-up name. They use this validated machine-readable identity. It's the universal translator for institutional finance. Section 1. European MiCA and ESMA integration. Now, I will trace exactly how this DTI code connects directly to the European legal and regulatory framework. The structural strategy we are seeing here is nothing short of a masterclass in regulatory foresight. Pi Network didn't just toss a coin onto a random exchange and hope for the best. They deliberately separated their entities to create a highly robust, compliant legal shield. Think about it like a well-architected global corporation. First, you have Social Chain, which handles the actual application and the underlying protocol. Then you have the Pi Foundation, which handles the broad network governance. But for Europe, they established PiBuild Ltd in the British Virgin Islands as a wholly owned subsidiary of the Pi Foundation,
Why go through all that trouble? Specifically to take direct legal responsibility for requesting Pi's trading approval in the EU and EEA under the notoriously stringent MiCA regulations. This is purposeful, institutional-grade corporate structuring designed explicitly from day one for global regulatory compliance.
And when you look at how this chain of legal events unfolds, it is completely unbroken. It's a perfect sequence. Step 1. Pivot actually authors the MiCA white paper, and in doing so, they officially classify Pi as an OTR class asset. That stands for Other Crypto Asset, which is crucial because it means Pi isn't heavily restricted as a mere utility token or a stablecoin. It has room to operate. Step 2. They notify the Malta Financial Services Authority, the MFSA, pushing the legal paperwork into the European system. And Step 3, which is the undeniable reality we see right now in late July 2026, that exact document sits securely in the official European Securities and Markets Authority, or ESMA, central MiCA registry. The pipeline is complete. Pi's documentation has flowed from a specific corporate entity straight through a national regulator, right into the central European database. It is now there for any other regulated operator to access and rely upon.
Now for the absolute, undeniable proof of real-world application. Because the registry entry is great, but external institutional usage is what really matters. On July 9, 2026, OKCoin Europe released their sustainability disclosure. This is a legally mandated document under MiCA Article 66, Paragraph 5. And in this incredibly strict compliance document, OKCoin physically uses the Pi Group's DTI 2Z2WZP5KM as its legal data key. They didn't just casually type the word Pi into a Word document. No, they used the official ISO standard to legally report on Pi's specific blockchain consensus protocols, the SEP and FBA. They reported on its security circle trust graph, and they published specific node energy metrics. Think about the gravity of this. This is an external, highly regulated, billion-dollar entity taking the Pi Group DTI and plugging it directly into their mandatory regulatory filings. The bridge between the native token and real-world institutional compliance isn't a theory anymore. It is officially active.
But the adoption doesn't stop at crypto exchanges. That's the wild part. Traditional finance systems are already actively identifying PI. Just look at the Spotlight stock market over in Sweden. They currently list an exchange-traded product in ETP that tracks PI. It's called the Valor PI SEK, and it comes complete with a traditional ISN, CH110-868-1540. You literally cannot get more traditional finance than an ISN code. Even more remarkably, the central securities depository for this specific product is Euroclear Sweden. Now, to be crystal clear, this is a cash-settled product, so it doesn't mean Euroclear is holding the native PI directly in their vaults today. But it brilliantly demonstrates a massive shift. Traditional securities markets, traditional product issuers, and central depositories absolutely have the established infrastructure to process PI-based products.
Section 2. U.S. Tax Reporting Infrastructure.
From Europe, we move straight to the United States, where the infrastructure for identifying Pi is equally established and rigid. Let's dive into the 2026 U.S. tax reporting infrastructure. The IRS has fully rolled out Form 1099-DA specifically for digital asset brokers. And what is the very first thing the IRS demands in Box 1A? The 9-digit DTIF identifier. If a crypto asset somehow doesn't have one, brokers are basically instructed to enter a generic string of nines, essentially flagging it as an unregistered unknown. But because Pi secured its ISO registration, U.S. brokers now have the exact compatible reporting infrastructure to process Pi natively using its 2K95TZ2QN identifier. This means Pi is completely avoiding being lumped into some unregistered gray market category. It has a distinct, fully isolated tax identity in the absolute strictest eyes of the U.S. government. Now keep in mind, Pioneer assets that were mined are generally considered non-covered securities. If you move your assets to a regulated exchange and sell them, that exchange is going to report the proceeds to the IRS using this DTF code. But they won't inherently know your original cost basis. And this highlights exactly why having dominion and control over your own non-custodial wallet and keeping precise, meticulous records of your migration is absolutely essential under this new global standard. You have to be prepared for the reality of this reporting infrastructure. And all of this brilliantly illustrates the fundamental architectural difference between Pi and quite literally every other top asset currently on the market. Think about the traditional crypto path for a second. What do? They create a token out of thin air, they artificially build up liquidity, they beg to get listed on a centralized exchange, and then they force the users to KYC at the exchange level. In that model, the identity of the user belongs to the exchange, not the asset or the network. Pi Network entirely inverted this model. They flipped it upside down. Pi verified the massive human network first. They deployed KYC for individuals and KYB for businesses on a global scale. Then they connected those verified entities to non-custodial wallets on-chain.
Then they built an internal utility ecosystem. And only then, only after the ecosystem of verified humans was complete and functioning, did they finally dock with the external institutional infrastructure through the ISO DTI and MiCA. It is a completely reversed, fundamentally superior development path.
Section 3. Regulatory native and wallets.
This reversed development path that Pi took, it perfectly aligns with the ultimate, strict demands of global institutional finance. When we deeply examine the SEC no-action letter granted to the DTCC, and when we read Euroclear's explicit requirements for future tokenization, they aren't looking for the Wild West. They aren't looking for anonymous crypto trading. They demand a precise, highly controlled, legally sound architecture. What they envision are public blockchains operating with permitted institutions holding what they explicitly call registered wallets. A registered wallet is a specific wallet that cryptographically guarantees to the world that the legal owner behind the address is fully KYC and AML verified, it guarantees they are screened against international sanctions, and it guarantees they are subject to continuous on-chain monitoring. Without this exact structure, traditional finance simply cannot and will not legally move massive institutional liquidity onto a public ledger. It's a non-starter. Now, why are they pushing for this registered wallet standard so aggressively? Because of the KYC silo. In their joint interoperability reports, the heavyweights like the DTCC and Euroclear clearly identified the KYC silo as the ultimate bottleneck holding back global finance. Right now, in the traditional world, identity data completely fails to travel with the asset. If you pass KYC at Bank A and you want to move a major asset to Exchange B, you have to do the entire KYC process all over again. It's redundant, it's expensive, and it's slow. This broken system traps liquidity, it causes endless failed cross-institution transfers, it leads to totally inconsistent compliance approvals, and it skyrockets processing delays. The legacy system is practically begging for a verifiable credential that can securely travel with the wallet across different platforms, instantly proving the user's identity without repeating the onboarding process. So, keeping that massive TradFi problem in mind, look at what Pi launched in 2026. Pi Verify. This isn't just an app update. This is the exact, purpose-built solution to dismantle the KYC silo. Pi Verify is a B2B service layer. It allows totally external platforms, fintechs, and Web3 applications to literally plug into and utilize Pi's staggering 18 million strong verified human infrastructure through simple APIs. It offers real-time liveness checks, stringent sanction screening, and global authenticity scoring. And here is the truly brilliant part. External companies must pay for this vital service using Pi. This generates direct, organic, enterprise-level utility demand for the asset, but more importantly, it acts as the ultimate portable credential for the user. It transforms Pi from just a consumer utility token into a vital piece of underlying institutional identity infrastructure for the entire internet.
So let's zoom out and see how this all builds into the broader macro architecture of digital finance. I've long analyzed that the future of global finance runs on three distinct, interlocking rails. First, you have the Canton Network, which handles the strict institutional privacy and internal trading between massive central banks. Second, you have networks like Stellar, which we know the DTCC is actively exploring, and these handle public asset tokenization and rapid liquidity movement. But there has always been a missing third rail. You see, neither Canton nor Stellar natively solve the human identity problem at a global consumer scale. That is exactly where Pi's identity layer slots in. It provides the critical KYC-verified human and entity data that actually allows those registered wallets to move compliantly across the public liquidity rails. It is the final piece of the Trinity.
Section 4. Present facts and final conclusion. Let's pull this all together.
I am now going to consolidate the absolute realities that exist right now, leaving absolutely zero room for speculation or guesswork. These 10 facts are permanently locked into reality as of July 2026. 1. PiBit exists as a fully established legal entity specifically for EU entry. 2. The MiCA white paper has been officially submitted to regulators. 3. The ISO 2465 DTI codes have been granted. 4. That DTIF record is fully, completely validated. 5. The Central ESMA registry officially lists PiBit. 6. OKCoin Europe physically uses the Pi DTI in their legal compliance reports today. 7. The Valor Pi ETP holds a traditional ISIN processed by Euroclear Sweden. 8. The IRS 1099 DAF infrastructure strictly utilizes this exact DTI standard for tax reporting. 9. Pi Verify is live right now as an enterprise B2B KYC tool. And 10. Protocol version 25 added the cryptographic hashing necessary for privacy-preserving zero-knowledge proofs. When you look at these 10 facts together, there's only one conclusion.
The institutional bridge is unequivocally built. With these undeniable facts established as our foundation, the inevitable next sequence of events becomes incredibly clear. We can see exactly where this is going. Step 1 will be the much broader adoption of Pi's DTI by other regulated entities, traditional custodians, and financial data providers well beyond just OKCoin. Step 2 will be the massive public onboarding of named B2B clients who are actively utilizing Pi Verify, which will dramatically shift the demand for Pi from retail exchange trading to pure enterprise utility. Step 3 is the real magic moment we've been waiting for. The ultimate cryptographic bonding of these zero-knowledge proof credentials directly to the individual non-custodial Pi wallets. And finally, Step 4. External, legacy financial institutions will be forced to formally recognize these Pi-registered wallets as fully compliant endpoints for institutional capital to flow into.
Which leads us directly to this profound realization. It's something that completely shifts how you view this entire project. Pi Network was never playing catch-up with regulations. They weren't sitting around waiting for governments to pass laws so they could react. Pi was engineering a natively compliant ecosystem of verified humans, verified businesses, and non-custodial wallets from day one. They spent years building the exact KYC architecture that legacy titans like the DTCC and Euroclear are currently begging for. And now, with the ISO DTI active and the MiCA integration validated, the legacy financial system is simply plugging their cords into what Pi has already built. They aren't adapting to the rules. They are regulatory native.
Section 5, the ultimate blueprint. We have moved completely beyond the era of the anonymous, unregistered digital asset.
When you take a step back and look at the macro picture, it is breathtaking. By seamlessly combining the ISO 24165 DTI, which perfectly mathematically identifies the digital asset for global machines and tax authorities, with the Pi Verify infrastructure, which perfectly and legally identifies the actual human and entity behind the screen, Pi provides the complete, unified architecture required for compliant global on-chain finance. Think about that. They have solved the digital asset identity problem, and they have solved the human identity problem simultaneously. And they have housed both of these monumental solutions within a massive, pre-existing, deeply engaged ecosystem of 18 million verified individuals. No one else has done this. It is the true foundation of the global tokenized economy.
So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to consider. As the massive trillions of dollars traditional financial system frantically searches for a way to verify identity on public blockchains without violating user privacy and without locking up global liquidity and endless redundant KYC silos, we really must ask ourselves a question. Will the institutional integration of Pi's natively registered wallets, empowered by the Pi Verify API and standardized globally by their ISO DTI, become the ultimate undeniable standard for the entire future of the tokenized global economy? When you look at the mountain of validated data and institutional filings from July 2026, it strongly suggests the answer is already unfolding right in front of us. This isn't theory anymore. It is happening. Keep learning, keep analyzing the data, and I'll see you in the next explainer.